This Dvar Torah is where I'm going to be giving over the ideas from a Maamer, a Hasidic discourse given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe on the first pasuk in the book of BaMidbar, which we are studying now. And it also has to do with the beauty of Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. And so it's very relevant to the fact that we just celebrated Shavuot and we received the Torah again. And we started the book of BaMidbar, and it gives us a very clear direction for what we need to focus on as we work to bring Mashiach. So the book of BaMidbar starts, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe BaMidbar Sinai. And Hashem spoke to Moses from the desert, the Midbar of Sinai. So what is a Midbar? What is a desert? So a Midbar is a place where it's very hot and there's not much rain, if any, and things don't grow there. You don't find fruits and trees and vegetables. There's not much life there. It's a very inhospitable place for humans to live. Most people, human beings, cannot really live in the desert. What does live there are snakes and serpents and scorpions, very dangerous things. So if we look at it, we can look at a midbar, the Rebbe says, being in two ways. We can look at the fact that people don't live there because it's very low. It's a place which is lower than a person. It doesn't have anything a person could possibly need or want. But on the other hand, it could also be looked at as the midbar is very high and that a person cannot live there because the person is not high enough to live there. So if we look at it, really the midbar is something of both, because we're told that things which appear very low in this world actually have a very high source. So the midbar is what we say is lower than the seder ha'ishtalshelut, this chain-like progression of worlds from Hashem in all of his glory with more concealment, more concealment, more concealment. The midbar, the desert, the physical desert, is even lower than that because it's a place of snakes, serpents, and scorpions, which represent the three completely impure klippas. Now, what is a klippa? A klippa means it's like a shell. So when I want to eat an orange, I have to take off the klippa, the shell, the skin, the peel. The peel hides what's inside. It hides the fruit inside. So we have this idea of three impure klipot, which are completely, they hide godliness, but it's not something that through my Torah and mitzvahs I can really access and elevate. It's too impure. Whereas we have another klippa called klippat noga. It's the shining klippa, which is like a mixture of the thing that hides the fruit, but yet it is something which we can access and we could, take the good out of it. So that's the klippa that we engage with as Jews. So, and we can elevate the godly sparks in something which is from klippat noga. So in order to be able to purify these very low klippas, the snakes, the serpents, and the scorpions in the desert, you need something very high. It has to be higher than the seder ha'ishtalshelut, than that chain-like descent of the worlds, because it's so low that we can't access it through our normal ways. So to access it, it has to come from a very high place. And that's the midbar, that is the high, the one that's on high, the midbar that's up there. So we say it's above. It's above reason and understanding. It's above limitations and boundaries. It's above all that. It can break through, and it can actually transform those three impure klipot into holiness. Now, when we work with the things that have a potential for holiness, so kosher things or parv things, things that, you know, could go one way or the other, like let's say money, okay? So money could go one way. It could be used for tzedakah, it could be used for helping things, it could be used to buy things for mitzvahs, to, you know, buy kosher food, buy tznius clothing, etc. On the other hand, money could be used for impure things too, and it can be something which can lead a person into, you know, a lot of yetzer haras and a lot of negative things. So money is something which can go either way, okay? So that's something we can interact with, because we can elevate it to holiness. But to deal with those three impure klipos, it can only be from this power above, which we call is the power of Keter. Keter means crown. So if we think of the chain-like progression of the worlds, that it's coming from Hashem's wisdom, which is in his brain. So the crown is on top. Okay, so the level is on top. So the letters Keter, in Hebrew, Keter is crown. If you rearrange them, it makes the word karet, which means to uproot. So that level of Keter is something which can uproot things which are very lowly. So that is what that level is all about. That level of the desert, which is very high, can uproot and transform the level of the desert, which is very low, which is the impure klipot. So how does this relate to us? Okay, so each person has 10 powers of the soul. So we have the intellectual powers, the chokhmah, bina, and dat, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And then we have 7 more emotional powers: chesed, gevura, tiferet, netzach, hod, yesod, malchut, kindness, severity, compassion or beauty, and then perseverance, humility, foundation, and royalty. Okay, so those are the powers that we have. And with those powers, we can access the world, and we can do all the things that we can do to elevate the godly sparks. But there is also a part of the soul which is above that, and we call that the level of makif, the level of surrounding. So it's not something that, you know, we can really so much be in touch with, but it's there, and that is the level which can deal with these things, these other forces which are inaccessible through our normal interactions. Okay, so we're going to understand what that means, because that level, this surrounding level, is a level which actually will let the light of Hashem surround the world. So the service, the avoda that we do to let Hashem's light break through and be the surrounding level of light that will be experienced everywhere, not just in the kosher things that we interact with, but everywhere. That level is the level that is accessed through this level of beyond reason and understanding. Okay? So when we look at, there's this idea of man and then not man. Okay, so man in Hebrew is Adam, Adam. Adam has the letters Aleph, Daled, Mem. Adam. Now, in the book of Yeshayahu, we're told a lot of prophecies about Mashiach. And one of them is that Nasa v'gava me'od, that in the days of Mashiach, the Jewish people will be raised up to a very high level. Nasa v'gava me'od. Me'od means very, okay? Now in the Shema, when we say the first paragraph of the Shema, we say V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha bechol vavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha. Me'od, right? You shall love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your me'od. And me'od, we can translate it as might, so that the me'od of a person is their might. Now, what is this me'od? What is the essence of this me'od? So the Rebbe tells us that the word Adam and the word me'od have the same letters, Aleph, Daled, Mem. But in the word Adam, they go in order, and that's the normal way of a person, is to do things in an orderly fashion. So what do we mean they go in order? First of all, they go in order of the alphabet. Aleph is the first letter, then Daled comes after that later, and later than that comes Mem. So it's in order. Me'od, the Mem comes first, and then the Aleph, and then the Daled. So it's not in order. Second of all, the letters themselves represent things. So Aleph represents the Alufo Shel Olam, the number one in the world, which is Hashem. Who's one? Hashem is one. Now from Hashem, we get the wisdom. So that the Aleph actually represents first taking the wisdom of Hashem, having thought, machshava, and thinking about what we're going to do before we do it. The second one, Daled is dibur, which is speech. So after we've thought about what we want to do, we need to verbalize it and make our plan more concrete. And only after that we get to the Mem, which is maaseh, which is action. So that is the normal way that a man should act. A person should first think through things, then actually verbalize it to make it very concrete, and then actually do the action. That way you know that you've done a good process and that your action is going to be good. So when we want to do a mitzvah, first we have to think about it, we have to study about it, we have to talk about it, we have to, verbalize, okay, this is the halacha, this is how it's done, and then after that we do it. Then we know that we did the mitzvah right, okay? And it's just a good way of action. That's why the word Adam is just such a perfect name for a person, because that's what a person should be. He should be an Adam. He should be a person that thinks and then talks and then does. Now, me'od, the me'od here, it puts the Mem first. And Mem, we said, was maaseh. It's the deed. It means having the action first. Now, what is that like? Sometimes it seems like, well, that seems very impulsive. Well, we had a very impulsive thing happen at the giving of the Torah. The Jewish people were told, hey, I'm going to give you this Torah. And what did they say? Did they say, hey, I want to think about it first. Let me find out what's in it. Let me look at it. Let me decide if I really want to do this. No, they said, na'aseh v'nishma. They put the na'aseh, we will do, before we will understand, the nishma. And that was why the Jews got the Torah, because they were willing to put the naaseh before the nishma. They were willing to say, we'll do it, which is a level above reason and understanding. According to reason and understanding, you've got to think about this first. Why are you accepting this? But it accesses that level that we talked about before of the midbar, of the desert, which is above the level of makif, the level that's surrounding, that is above the chokhmah, bina, dat, above all the understanding, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. It's above it. And so it has a power then to actually subdue and transform these other forces which normally we can't access. That power is what the me'od has. That's the true might, okay? The true might that we express when we say the Shema. And another way that we express that is the idea of Kabbalat Ol. That is where we say, I am going to take on Hashem's yoke. I am his servant. He can put the yoke on me. I will do what he tells me to do just because I'm his servant and he's the master and I don't need to understand it. I'm going to do it. That power is the power which can break the Yetzer Hara. It can subdue the Sitra Achra, and it can therefore let Hashem's light shine everywhere, okay? So not just on the things which are Klipat Noga, that are, Parev, or they're kosher, but everywhere. When we take on that idea of Me'od, of might, of Kabbalat Ol, then we can actually break the Yetzer Hara, subdue the Sitra Achra, and let Hashem's light shine everywhere. So the Rebbe brings a beautiful, beautiful reference from Shir HaShirim that talks about the Midbar, the desert. And there are two verses that start with these words, Mizot ha'ola min ha'midbar. In Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, there are two verses that start and that way and talk about the midbar. Mizot ha'ola min ha'midbar. Who is this who is coming up out of the desert? And the first one says, Ketimrot ashan mikuteret mor ulevona mikol avkat rochel. Who is this coming up? Who is this? It's a female, huh? Who is this woman coming up out of the desert? She is like fragrant smoke from burning incense, of myrrh and frankincense, and all sorts of perfumers' powders. Okay, so that's the first one, that this woman, this female, is coming up, and she's with a cloud of good smelling things around her. And the second verse, Mizot ola min hamidbar, mitrapeket al doda tachat tapuach. Who is this coming up out of the midbar? She is clinging to her beloved under the apple tree. Orartich. Let me read it from here. I'm reading it from my notes. Let me read it from the book. Orarticha shama chiblatecha. Imecha shama chibla yeladetecha. So it says, I roused your love there, and your mother gave birth to you there. And she went through your mother was birthed there, and your mother gave birth to you there, okay? So our sages tell us, because these are very difficult things to understand, that both of these are referring to when the Jews left Egypt. The first one is talking about the fact that when the Jews came out into the Midbar, instead of it being an inhospitable place of snakes and scorpions and serpents, it was like a paradise. They had, as if they had myrrh and frankincense and all kinds of beautiful fragrances, and the way was like a spa. There was a pillar of fire that lit their way, and and the cloud of glory smoothed out their way, and they were living in a beautiful existence. So that's what the first verse is talking about, where it talked about the fragrant smoke and the myrrh and the frankincense. And then the second one is talking about Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, that it said, who is this who came up out of the Midbar, of the desert, that she clung to her beloved one under the apple tree, and that there this nation was born, and that the nation, that the mother of the nation was born, and the nation was born. So this is referring to Matan Torah, that as the people came and they stood at the foot of Har Sinai, this was like the apple tree, and the beloved is Hashem, and Hashem made them into his chosen nation. So the Rebbe tells us that the commentators say that the fact that it says twice, Mizot Ola Min HaMidbar, it means it's not just referring back to the first time, because that would have been enough to say it one time, Mizot HaOla Min HaMidbar, but the fact that it says it twice means it's referring back to then, and also referring to the times of Mashiach, and specifically to the time of Tchiyat HaMetim, when the dead will be resurrected. Why? Because it says, who is this coming up out of the desert? It will be like the resurrection. Who are these souls coming up out of the desert? Because all of the generations, all of the departed people of the Jewish people from all the generations will suddenly rise up and become alive in the time of Tchiyat HaMetim. So he also says that it gives us a lesson for how we are to do our work, and what does this mean? So the first verse, which spoke about the smoke, that it was the cloud of smoke, of frankincense and myrrh, etc., that's referring to the avoda, the service of smoke. What is the service of smoke? Okay, and I don't smoke, but the service of smoke means that you're trying to get the godly spark. You're trying to get that to come up out of the physical shell which houses it. And smoke only happens when the fire is kind of fighting with the physical part, okay? And then it's making the physical go up in smoke, and so you're left with just the fire. So that's the idea of smoke. So that is referring to the service that we do, that we try to interact with the world in a kosher way, and by making a bracha on the food, we elevate the sparks in the food. Everything that we come in contact, when we use it for a holy purpose, we're like the smoke. We're getting rid of the physical part, and we're elevating the godly spark inside. The flame is just going up to Hashem. And that when Har Sinai, when Mount Sinai was smoking at the time of the Torah, that was to show the Jews, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to elevate the physical and make the physical kind of go up in smoke and access the godly part. Now, this also relates to the second verse, where it talks about the birth of the nation, and that we say that relates to the Tchiyat HaMetim, the resurrection of the dead, because there is a verse in Parshas Nitzavim that says, I put before you life and good, and bad, and then death and evil, and choose life, choose good. And so what does it mean to choose life and choose good? I mean, yeah, we all want to live. So the Rebbe tells us it means it's that same avoda of elevating the godly sparks. When we elevate the godly spark, when we take something and we use it for a kosher purpose, and we make a bracha over it, etc., we elevate it, we give life to it. Before it was just like a dead physical thing. But when we go in and we do that and we elevate the spark, it's like we've given life to it. And so by that action of giving life to all the physical things in this world, we are getting the merit that Hashem will give life to all of the departed in the times of Mashiach, in the time of the resurrection of the dead, the Tchiyat HaMetim. So this idea of the Midbar that we talked about, that we have the sparks, the smoke, and we have the giving life, by elevating the sparks inside of everything and elevating to holiness, that has to do with the avodah of the Adam. Aleph, Daled, Mem. That's the regular things that we interact with that are all kosher. But then, of course, we have that second level, which is the me'od, the might, the higher level, the one that's beyond, that's above, and that's the idea of the might of the Kabbalat Ol, of just saying, you know what, I'm listening to Hashem, Naaseh, I'm going to do it. I don't have to understand it. I'll understand it later, but I'm going to do it. Kabbalat Ol, that might, that is what will actually then break through, destroy the Sitra Achra, destroy the Yetzer Hara, and it will actually transform it so that Hashem's light will break through, and it will break through in its fullest sense when Mashiach comes. So that's what we need to do. We need to do everything that we can to interact with all objects in the world in a holy and permissible way, and elevate as many sparks as we can by focusing on the holiness in everything and using it for a mitzvah, using our thoughts to think of Torah thoughts and good thoughts, using our speech to speak words of Torah, words of tefillah, and using our hearts to feel love for another Jew and to do teshuvah, and using our hands and our feet and our bodies to do mitzvahs. So that should be our focus. And yet we have to do everything with a Kabbalat Ol, with just a complete and total dedication. And through these things, Hashem will finally, God willing, reward us with the coming of Mashiach, so we will see Hashem's great light filling the world, filling every single spot, and we will experience Tchiyat HaMetim, the full idea of having life, everything in this world being alive. And it should be right away. And I want to wish you a good Shabbos and a lot of inspiration in bringing Mashiach.